Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank all of you. I'm so sorry, sometimes our meetings run over and we're in different areas at different times, but I'm glad to be here. I want to talk to you about, we're introducing what we call the Appalachian Storage Hub. And with all the newfound gas that we have, with the wet gas, especially in the Marcellus, Utica Shale, now the Rogersville coming on, and in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and maybe even Kentucky too, hooking these up with a storage hub that basically would move some of the critical energy products that we have, which are now mostly located in the Southwest, and giving us more opportunity, and I think more national security also, because we're not in the path of a hurricane, and we're pretty much protected by the mountains. So we think it would be a great opportunity. I don't know if you all know anything about that or have looked into that, and what your opinion might be on moving that forward. Yes, Mr. Mills.
Well, Senator, you put your finger on something that's critical for the grid and also for general domestic energy security in the Northeast, which is it's starved for storage capacity, as you well know. And adding gas storage capacity, both wet and dry gas, is probably the single most important and simple thing that can be done to increase domestic reliability on the grid, which is becoming increasingly gas-centric. If you look at the total amount of generation growth forecast for the next decade in the United States and in the Northeast, gas turbines are the go-to. And you don't want to be dependent just on pipes. You need to have storage, 100%.
Well, if we could get y'all's, can we get any written statements on support of that? Because we're working with the Department of Energy. I think they feel the same thing, but coming from the expertise that you all have would be tremendously helpful, sir. Tremendously helpful.
Be happy to do that, Senator.
Next of all, speaking on reliability, and I've always, in West Virginia, we've been blessed with everything. But we're an all-in energy. Everybody thinks it's all about just coal and just fossil, but really we're trying everything that we can. But the base load, there's a study being done by the Department of Energy on the reliability of the grid. And I'm so sorry, I'm sure you might have talked about this some previously from other senators. But I'm very much concerned about that because remember the polar vortex, I know we almost went down, especially the PJM system was very razor thin of collapsing. And with more coal, dependable, reliable, affordable coal plants coming offline, how have you all looked at the critical factor that we have there and the jeopardy that we're put in as the grid system?
Well, I'd happy to be. Let me make an observation that was in the news with respect to South Australia, which echoes the direction that a lot of people hope the grid will go. As you know, they have had several blackouts, one very recent. In the news, in the Wall Street Journal said it was because they were exporting natural gas. That's not the reason the blackout occurred. It's because that part of Australia has 40% of its electricity currently coming from wind turbines. When you have wind subside, you have to have other capacity. If you can't import it, and the import capacity is limited because the magnitude of the drop, you do rolling blackouts. The answer that Elon Musk has proposed is to build a battery plant, which is good. Batteries work. I ran a battery factory for a while. I know a little bit about batteries. But I would like to point out that in order to store half a day of no wind in South Australia, Elon Musk would have to build 150 of the battery plants he's planning to build, and he's building one, which he says will be 3 times bigger than the world's biggest utility battery plant. And South Australia, I'll note for the record, has about 1/3 of the population of the greater Washington, D.C. area. So when you begin to think about these energy solutions, scale matters, and that's where storing gas and building more gas turbines actually matters.
Well, uninterruptible power, I mean, and I've understood it for a long time and tried to, and a lot of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, but on my side of the aisle sometimes are in disagreement, but they just don't understand where the electricity, where it comes from, and it has to be uninterruptible. The only 2 things you have uninterruptible in the United States or in the world that I know of is coal and nuclear. Everything else is interruptible. And the only 3rd one that has surpassed or is equal to coal is natural gas, even though that's interruptible, but you're still in jeopardy. And all of the renewables, God bless them, and we like it. We like wind, solar, we like it all. So when people tell me they want everything on renewables, I said, just tell me what 5 hours of the day you want your power, and I'm happy to oblige you. I'm happy to take care of you, because that's what you're going to get, and nothing more than that. But in some parts of the country, unless that system, that grid can back it up, they're in great peril, and they don't really realize it. And so we're looking at how do we continue to have a dependable, reliable delivery system, and we need people like yourself speaking out in common sense until See, I believe in my heart that we're going to find eventually commercial hydrogen, which is water vapors. I keep believing that. Maybe it'll happen in our children or grandchildren. And there's going to be some magical, clean, green that everybody's happy with. But until you get to that day, you have to be in the real world. And the real world is you better have so much reliable power, and coal's going to play a major part, 30% or more, for the next 20, 30 years. Do you all agree with that?
Senator, coal use globally, as you know, is going up. The United States,
it's not going down.
It's certainly been an exporter. Let me just echo your sentiment. Everyone agrees it'd be nice to have different forms of energy. We need them at scale and reliability. In the world I've worked in for decades as a physicist and looking at the physics of energy, we used to call that the search for unobtainium.
Unobtainium. Makes sense. Anybody else want to comment?
Well, Senator, what this has done is given us breathing room to pursue alternative sources of power. And I know Bob would certainly agree, small modular reactors, for instance, are possible.
About
The science is
nuclear
proven.
reactors, right?
You can do that.
Yeah.
Long term, and I know people laugh at fusion energy, but you go outside and look at the sun, it's there. It can be done, but if you've got the right amount of research, and I think this is the time now to start investing long-term in some of those other sciences while we've got that ability to have an overabundance of oil and fossil fuels.
Yeah, I think what I would add, Senator, just is, obviously had not seen the DOE study, but I think this is a very important, critical subject for our entire economy and standard of living. The continued, every time you flip the switch, it comes on. And what I would suggest is, as we all move forward together, my organization, myself, we support, the classic all of the above. We should be pursuing all energy options. But as we go forward, in the spirit of contingency, reliability, confidence, we need to make sure we don't inadvertently allow ourselves to make overly optimistic assumptions. And the example I'll give you is in the last several years, the energy storage industry has moved forward leaps and bounds. Tremendous accomplishment. It's great for the country. Absolutely wonderful. I'm also the principal officer. I lead NPR, leading specialty engineering company in the power industry. We were critical with our customer AES in delivering and building the largest battery energy storage facility in the world in Southern California. Went online in February. Its capacity is measured in tens of megawatts, tens of megawatt hours. All right, which means that you take a large nuclear or coal-powered power plant, and the largest battery storage, energy storage facility in the world, it handles minutes of capacity of that facility. So even though energy storage has, or an hour maybe, so even though energy storage has made great progress, and I think it will continue to make great progress, and it is a definite critical part of our infrastructure going forward, all of us have to make sure that the pace at which we assume technology development will occur is appropriate so we don't wake up one day and be disappointed.
Well, West Virginia is happy to continue to provide the power that keeps the East Coast lit up. If they shut us down, they're all going down, okay? And they made it very difficult for our little state to produce the power we produce. But we've done it cleaner and better and made more advancements in the last 20 years than ever been done in the history of the world. Still get the living crap kicked out of us every day by Washington. Unbelievable.
Senator, I live in Virginia, and
I want to flip the switch every now and then, just say, hey, how'd you like that?
I live in Virginia, and I know that Virginia is one of the largest energy importers in the country, and we thank West Virginia.
Well, we're happy to do it. We like to do the heavy lifting. We'll continue to do it. Thank you, man.